Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the SK series. If you're new here, this is Serial Killers with Sydney Kelly, and I'm your host, Sydney Kelly. And today we're going to talk about Joe Metheny. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did put a disclaimer out, but I'm not going to lie, this one is like crazy. He's definitely gonna make you change like the way you eat for like the rest of the week. I'm not gonna lie. So if this is gonna bother you, please do not tune into this video. Just tune in next week. Next week will be super like clean for a serial killer and fantastic. So don't feel pressured to watch this one if you get like um queasy from like chopped up bones and stuff. Just don't tune in. But if you're going to stay, today we're going to talk about Joe Metheny. So, Joe was born March 2nd, 1955, in Baltimore, Maryland. So, according to Joe, he had a very neglected childhood. His dad passed away when he was only 6 years old in a car accident. And according to him, his mom just was not attentive to him and his other five siblings. And according to him, he was put in the foster system, but not really the foster system. He was just going house to house with his siblings to be taken care of. But according to his mom, she just had a lot of jobs to work because she had five kids to support because she was a single mom. And she was dropping them off at a lot of friends' houses because she couldn't, just leave them at home while she's at work. So we don't really know much about his childhood because we have two different perspectives, but from what I read, it did seem like his mom really did care about him. However, when Joe was 18, he decided to enlist in the military. Now, Joe says that he fought in the Vietnam War. However, there's no record of him being in the Vietnam War, but we do know that he was for sure in the military. However, while he was in the military, he did get hooked on heroin and cocaine. So when he got out of the military, he was still on heroin and cocaine. He decided to go back to Baltimore, Maryland. He didn't really keep in contact with his mother and his sister. Kind of just started to do his own thing. He became a truck driver and he started living in a trailer in Maryland, just living his life. He did, however, run into this lady and he really thought she was beautiful. We don't have a record of her name, but they end up getting married. She's also a drug addict, so I guess that's what they bonded over. But they did happen to have a son together. Now, Joe is just living life, working, supporting his family, until one day Joe comes home and realizes that half of his furniture is gone and his wife and his son is gone. So Joe is going absolutely insane, as any father would who cares about his family. And Joe is like, I'm going to find out where she took my son. So Joe actually befriended a lot of the homeless community in Baltimore, Maryland, simply because he was hooked on drugs and he would just go and sit with the homeless people and do drugs with them. So he ended up going to one of the bridges, underneath the bridges in Baltimore, and he asked a man, hey, like, have you seen my wife and my son? Like, they ran away from home. Like, where are they? And the man responds with, well, she's actually at this other bridge. She became a prostitute and she unfortunately had the child put in foster care because it looked like she was neglecting the child. So Joe went absolutely insane, as he should. Honestly, that's pretty reasonable. He lost his son. He has no idea where he's at, who he's staying with. So he's like, I'm going to go find this woman. So he goes to the other bridge where the man told him he was at, and Joe runs into these two other men underneath that bridge, two homeless men. Unfortunately, no one in this story has names. There's no records of these people's names. I hate to reference them as homeless person, but that's just how we have to roll with this story today. So Joe was talking to these two men and they told him, I'm sorry, but we have no idea where your wife is. We haven't seen her. And Joe is high on heroin at this time. So Joe is like, you know what? I feel like you're lying to me, so I'm going to kill you. So he kills these two men. And you would think that because they're two men that they can totally take him. No. Joe is 6'1" and 450 pounds. So, like, there was no stopping him. Like, he had it. So these two men are killed, and for some reason he decides to just chop their heads off and bury their heads and then drown their bodies. I don't know why we had to detach the head, but that's what he decided to do. So then there was this other lady coming underneath the bridge. She was a prostitute, so he was trying to lure her in to come and do drugs with him. He ended up just killing her, killed another lady under the bridge. Then he saw a guy fishing and he said, you know what, maybe he saw something. So he decides to kill him as well. And Joe even stated when he was at the end telling the police everything, he said, yeah, that was a really busy night. I killed like 5 people. No remorse at all. So he did hear someone else coming, but he decided, you know what, maybe it's just time to go. Maybe it's time to go. So he puts one lady in a bush. He drowned the other 2 men. The other lady he just left there, and he said, I should just go. So Joe, he still doesn't know where his wife and his son are. However, the police did find the 2 bodies that he did drown, and they were able to trace it back to him. So Joe does get arrested. However, of course, like this happens in every story we tell, there's not enough evidence that he actually did it. However, he does sit in jail for a while, and while he is in jail, Joe decides he loves killing. He was like, honestly, I'm pretty passionate about it. Like, this should be like a career of mine. And they have to let him out. They cannot trace that he did that for sure. So they let him out, and Joe goes back to truck driving and all of that and just doing his work. However, he still has his homeless friends. So Joe has done this little thing where he invites people to his trailer at night and he decides to just kill them. He hits them in the head a few times, just knocks them out unconscious, and then kills them from there. Or he will strangle them. And this is just what he does every night. And unfortunately, there's no record of how many people he actually killed. So I don't know if Joe is just lazy. Actually, no, I don't feel like this is a task of a lazy person. I guess he was just an actual psychopath. But Joe decides that instead of burying these people, he's going to chop them up and put the fatty parts of those people in Tupperware and put them in the freezer. So this is a reoccurring thing that he always decides to do. Yeah. And then Joe decides, you know what? I should get a little extra money. I need to I don't know if he was trying to get out of his trailer or what, or I don't know if he just wanted more drugs to spend money on. So he decides to open up his little new roast beef shop. Well, actually, it was a food truck. So he decides to open this food truck just on this random corner, and he takes beef and he takes the people out of his freezer and he mixes those together and he is serving them to people. And you know what he said? He tried these burgers or roast beef sandwiches himself, and he said, oh my goodness, it tastes like pork. This is so good. And he's serving these to people. So unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I don't know why I said that. Joe decides that, you know what, I need more of this human meat. So Joe decides to lure one of these prostitutes into his house, and he hits her upside the head. And I don't know why, but he's like, oh, she's definitely unconscious right now. So Joe decides to just go get a drink. She ends up escaping. She runs outside, and Joe doesn't even chase her. He's like, you know what? I have an 8-foot fence in front of my yard, so there's no way she's going to get out. However, luckily for her, there was piles of wood in front of that fence. So she's able to climb up and go run off. She runs into a truck driver. She's able to get into that truck driver's car and call the cops. So Joe is like, oh shoot, she actually got out. And Joe just knows that this is the end of his road. Joe simply just sits outside on his front lawn and waits for the police to come get him, and they do. And Joe decides that he's just going to confess everything. He's like, you know what? I have nothing to hide. I'm just going to tell them everything. He tells them the burial sites. He tells them how he chopped people's heads off. He tells them how he has been serving human meat at his burger or roast beef shop, and that he ate the beef himself. However, the police genuinely do not have any proof that he did this. So they don't know if he's just messing around. Like, to this day, we don't really know if those burgers like had human remains. I pray to God it's not, because if I would have eaten that, I would have not been able to live with myself. But anyways, they don't really know if he did these things. However, he was held for the charges that he had against those two men that he did kill earlier. So he was sentenced to 2 lives. So he was sentenced to life in prison. Joe said his words were, "The words 'I'm sorry' will never come out, for they would be a lie. I am more than willing to give up my life for what I have done, to have God judge me and send me to hell for eternity." And then he says at the end of his life, "The only thing I feel bad about in any of this is I didn't get to murder the 2 people I really was after. And that was my ex-old lady and the person she hooked up with." So Joe genuinely had no remorse for what he did to any of these people. And that is so sad. But I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure we will not be seeing him in heaven. He actually died alone in his jail cell on August 5th, 2017. And we actually do not have a record of how he passed away. And there actually is an open investigation going on right now about how Joe died, because nobody knows. No, we don't know if someone gave him something or if he took something himself. No one really knows the real story of Joe's death. However, honestly, with just, being careful, definitely don't go into a stranger's household that you don't know, even if they have something, because Joe lured, you know what I'm trying to say. Joe had all those people in his house because he had drugs, and that's what they wanted, was drugs. So if someone has something in their house that you want, but you don't really know them like that, don't go, okay? Just go buy it yourself. Like, just go buy it yourself, and don't do drugs ever, because it fries your brain. You don't need it. Like, no. We need to be fully developed, healthy brain, and try to make this a better society and not have people like Joe thriving, making human hamburger meat. So, guys, thank you so much for watching today. That is the story of Joe. I know it's pretty short today, but last week we went super long, so I just wanted to make this something super short. I hope that I didn't ruin any of you guys' meals for today. I hope you don't have a hamburger or roast beef sandwich for lunch today. If you do, I am terribly sorry, but actually it's Joe's fault. It's not my fault. I'm just telling the story. But guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Comment down below if there's any other serial killers that you are interested in hearing and that you're interested in me telling you guys. Comment down below if you're gonna take a little break from beef or roast beef this week, any type of brown meats in general, honestly. But guys, thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to the SK series.